So before we move on to exercise 8, I want to do a quick review of density real quick. So density is a derived unit, right? Or it has derived units. It's a derived quantity is what I should say. Volume is also a derived quantity, but the thing is both mass and volume are very, very easy to measure. And so it's very, very common, very, very probable that a question will just give you this information. Or in a lab, you would measure either the mass or the volume, and then you would do your calculation. And so what you're going to be getting is probably something in grams, because that's the most common unit for volume. And now what I have down here is these don't represent liters. This is not liters times liters times liters. This is length times length times length. Because remember, volume is a derived quantity. It's because it's three-dimensional. It's 3D. Right? It's a length multiplied by a length multiplied by a length. So L times L times L. Length times length times length. Remember in math class, when you calculate the volume of a cube, which is a three-dimensional thing, you would multiply the height by the width by the depth. Those are your three separate lengths, right? And so when you have a length times a length times a length, you have length cubed. And so you're going to have some sort of length here, whether that's meters, centimeters, sometimes, it can even be like miles. But it's going to be meters times meters times meters, centimeters times centimeters times centimeters, miles times miles times miles. And so these are all be cubed. That's a unit of volume. That's a unit of volume. Now, divided by a volume, a mass divided by a volume is your density. Now, this is very, very simple in order to calculate. And the reason I want to point this out to you again is because this simple idea can be twisted so that it actually gets a little bit complex, especially when you start trying to calculate densities of gases. It's gonna come back to bite us, and so there are a slightly different forms of this equation using things that are equal to mass that have to do with this, the state of a gas, something like that. But we are going to be using density. But remember, density ultimately is pretty simple to calculate.